This is another episode of Product Innovation Show with your guest host, Sergey. And my guest today grew up in a small country called Jordan. At the age of 14, he took a graphic design course at a local college, and he was the youngest student there, believe it or not. Lived in 4 countries on 3 different continents, and currently is a director of product at Ronday, which is a new collaboration platform helping users work in online space. Mahdi, thank you for coming. Really, really happy to have you here.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the a great introduction. And the pleasure is mine. I'm really happy to be here.
I wanted to talk about the worst product you had a chance to work on, because you have a really interesting story. I believe it was a Calendly competitor. It was a scheduling app.
Yeah, scheduling app.
So what was the story? Like, what happened? How did you got to work on it in the first place?
So I'm gonna share more details about this more than the ones we discussed earlier. So I joined a startup in Boston a few years ago as their first designer, and it's a tech like an ed tech startup, and the startup was trying to help high school students in getting their applications ready for college and helping them prepare for college to increase their chances for getting accepted from their college of choice. And during at that time, one of the problems that we were facing at the startup was that we had a scheduling problem. So when we were looking for solutions to the problem, I was so focused on solving the problem with software that we built. And we decided that, okay, we're going to go ahead and build software to help us solve this scheduling problem. And I admit that I did not look at the problem properly from the right angle. So, and we kind of jumped the gun almost too quickly and decided on going with that solution without considering other solutions. So we decided to build software to solve this problem. The software was very similar to Calendly, basically a scheduling software to help students schedule a session with a mentor to help them with their college application. However, when I think about this problem now, I wonder why we didn't try to solve it with off-the-shelf software, and why didn't we try to solve it, solve the operational problem? Because the scheduling was not the only problem that we had, and building our own software is a challenging thing, time-consuming, challenging, and expensive, and not to think about maintaining it and all of that. So that's one. The other thing, or the other huge mistake I think I made, which is that we decided to release this for everyone on the platform. So all of our users got the new scheduling app, and they were asked to only use this scheduling app. And obviously it wasn't perfect. It was super buggy. We got a sea of support tickets. People were not happy with the.
Of course, I can imagine.
Released. Yeah, and that was a valuable lesson, an expensive valuable lesson that I learned, that we should first of all investigate the problem that we're trying to solve thoroughly. We should look at all the different solutions that could potentially solve the problem, and do a cost analysis to determine whether this is the right solution for this problem. And lastly, it's super important to stagger your release. Do as much testing as possible before you flip the switch and release your feature to everybody.
But why did you decide at that time that building your own app was the way to go? Why do you think you thought it was the right decision at that time?
There were a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is that we wanted to have control over the data, which we would use to do some data analysis to determine when our consultants or our mentors are going to be mostly available for our customers. So we have two sides of the equation, our mentors and the customers, and we need to get like some analysis or analytics on when those people are available, who is who from our mentorship pool is like super overwhelmed, who has a lot of availability to balance things out. That's one. And two, we wanted to just get general analytics to understand how much time do they spend in those sessions, and if sessions were successful or not by asking or surveying the customers after a session is done.
So you thought at that time that the data was more important or had a higher value than getting something off the shelf and then having less data?
I think so. That's one, but I think I didn't think about getting the data in another way, because I'm pretty sure there are other ways to get the data without building your own software. Like you could find an off-the-shelf tool that would provide you with some sort of data that would be helpful for you, right? So that's where I think, we could have done better.
But you guys still looked at alternatives while you were looking at do we build our own? Do we not build our own? You looked at it. What do you feel like? Why did you like? Was it just more of a okay? We looked at alternatives. You already predetermined, or you already thought this is the only answer, and then like early on you stopped looking, like really looking.
We did look at the alternatives, and the obvious one was Calendly. However, I thought that building something that would have our brand at its core, like the visual look and the whole overall, like having control of the overall experience, I thought that this is going to be critical for the success of our product. But I later on learned throughout my career that this is not what determines the success or the failure of your product. What determines that is whether you're solving an actual problem for the user or not. So if you have a solution that is good enough, then definitely people are going to use it, or they are more high likely are going to use it. But if you have a well-designed solution for a problem that nobody cares about, people are just going to look at it and like, okay, this looks nice, but I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, that I'm thinking as a user, this is exactly what I do. Like it doesn't matter how beautiful or ugly, like I need this thing, like just give it to me.
Yep, exactly.
So you started building this app. You started building the Calendly alternative. How early did you realize, we actually went in the wrong direction?
It was late when I learned that. I think my brain ignored those early signs because I was kind of like young, I would say, and I did not have enough experience. I learned I discovered that we made a mistake when we started getting all those complaints from our users. People were not happy about it. That's when I learned that, okay, we probably have made a big mistake here.
And you, with the lesson number 2, we talked a little bit about the release. So what would be, let's say if a first part, you made the correct decision. You decided to build your app and this was the right thing to do. But then what should have you done with the part 2 when you are releasing it? So the bugs, obviously, it's good to spend time more in QA, make sure that like no mission critical things are missed there. But what should you do like in a better ideal world? with number two?
For sure, yeah. The first thing I would do is put a lot more emphasis on testing the product internally as much as we could, and then expand our testing to a few external users. So we would test it on maybe with like a couple of mentors, ask them to use the product for like a week and see how they react to it, gather some feedback, make some changes, and then increase our testing group to maybe like a handful of mentors, or like a dozen of mentors. And then after that, like after we do the second round of testing, if we started getting some good signs that, okay, we don't have any major issues with the experience, everything is as people would expect it to be, then at that point we would maybe release it to, let's say, 10% of our user base, depending on how big is our user base. But at that time, I think, had around 600 mentors, so 10% would be 60. So 10% sounds like reasonable, just to test it out for like a week, another week. And then if everything goes well, not so many bugs, then we would release it to everybody after that.
Right. But also consider maybe having an option, whatever the solution was before that your users used, just don't kill that.
That as well, but it's a tricky thing to do. Like in some cases, you would want them to stop using the other solutions that they were using, because
from the get-go.
From the get-go, like when you flip the switch, my recommendation, it's hard to recommend. It's like it's different depending on your situation. But for our situation at that time, we wanted people to switch to our platform, just like for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier about the analytics and gathering the data, and also because we wanted to be perceived more professionally by the customers, the parents and the students. We wanted to look like an actual brand rather than just a bunch of kids trying to help other kids with their college applications.
Right. Well, this is a great case study. I know maybe not necessarily the outcome of what you would prefer, the company would prefer, but so many lessons though.
Definitely, super valuable. And I love that startup I worked at. Everyone there taught me a lot of great things that I still carry with me every day, and those lessons are they were like hard to learn, but I'm very thankful and for that.
We usually do learn quite a lot more from these difficult experiences. One other thing I was going to ask you, what are the bad things that you hear being recommended in product or in design? Do this, don't do this, spend more time on this, spend less time on that. What is something that you often hear? We've covered a few, but something else that is not necessarily what people should be doing, either product or design.
One of the things, like, so in design, the most recommendation that I keep hearing from different people is to create a design system because it will help the team move faster.
Very common.
Yeah. And I disagree with that.
Okay.
I think I disagree for that for the type of companies who are in their early stages. If you're a startup, I don't think you should invest in building your design system or building a design system in general. I think you should try to focus on the build speed in other ways. So do not complicate things by trying to make sure that everything is standardized, everything looks like perfect, everything is a component and all of that. Doing that is going to slow you down. Doing that is going to be expensive. maintaining that is going to also be a drag. And if you like think about all these things that are related to a design system and you are in a startup, like you will notice that, okay, this is like a gigantic product on its own besides the product or the main product of my startup. So you have to pick your battles at your early stages, and the design system is a battle that I think you should like try to postpone or push to the future until you have a more of a mature team. And instead of building like a design system from day one, just have a conversation with your engineers and educate them or discuss with them the benefits of building components, and let them build the components as they go instead of trying to build everything ahead of time. So when they are implementing features, ask them to keep that in mind. Just try to build reusable components if that's not going to add to the implementation time, and take it from there. So that's on the design side.
I love it. This is fantastic. I've heard so many times design system, design system, design system. But you know what it is, I think? Like just hearing what you've been saying, it's just a lack of focus. Like Steve Jobs comes to Apple 1998 or 1997, company's 6 months from being bankrupt, draws the circle, kills all the lines, literally leaves 2 products, effectively only 2 products. We're going to focus on just 2 products. Can we just, if we take a lot of the companies and we do the same exercise, there's going to be a lot more than 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, I think to your point, is what do you consider a product? Design system is the hidden little beast that you need to pour a lot of resources in. And then what ends up happening is people start, then they leave, then they get reassigned, and then it just kind of drags you away from what you have identified, if you have identified a core initiative. And hopefully that's a long-term initiative.
Definitely. But like usually when you are like starting a company, you usually have like at least a short, like you should have like at least a short-term vision for what you're trying to build. And anything else besides that is a distraction. Like trying to build, for example, a support channel is a distraction. Trying to build like an awesome fancy marketing website, it might be helpful, but at the same time, I think it's another distraction. So you have to weigh all those things and decide where do you want to put the majority of your focus. Like where do you want to put 80% of your resources and focus in.
You can probably label it, which is not going to be necessarily correct, but as an exercise, active action and passive action. Active action is something that absolutely gets you to this specific goal. Can the user actually do this? Passive action is everything else. And it could look active, but it's actually not active action. It looks like a cool idea, and it might be very difficult, but it's a passive action.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, but comes back to focus. Mahdi, anything, I love this, by the way, anything I haven't asked you in this interview that you wanted to mention, or any final messages you wanted to leave the audience with?
Yeah, there's actually one other thing, a bad recommendation that I wanted to highlight.
Yes,
that
let's do it.
I may have a not so popular opinion about, which is that it's on the product side of things.
And this is what we like.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinions.
So usually a lot of the advice that I hear in the industry is that you should provide your team with super high level goals and ask your team to come up with the initiatives to develop solutions that would help the company achieve those goals or those high level goals.
Yeah, it's quite standard. Yeah.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think this can be super unfair to a lot of people on the team, like PMs, designers, and engineers, to have those high level goals and not the initiatives. What I think what I think leadership should provide the team with is those high level initiatives. They should provide them with those initiatives, like Instead of asking them or telling them that, okay, we need to improve our like daily active users, we need to give them a specific initiative that they need to look for or like work on building solutions for. One of those initiatives could be, for example, build like a feature that would increase the daily active users. What could be
Something more specific.
What is that?
Something more specific, like build a landing page that drives these number of people to sign up for this feature.
Exactly.
And in turn, get people to
exactly
to increase using the app.
Exactly. And then the team would try to think of like creative ways to build this landing page or this like feature in the application that would help drive those high level goals. So, and this frees the mind of those creatives on your team to focus on solving those problems rather than trying to solve really high level problems or like problems that are super complicated and that they may not have all the information they need to solve those problems. Like those high level goals, they usually come from the executives in the company, the CEO or the heads of the product, and they have information that may not be accessible for the rest of the team. And even if they try to share that information, it's going to be overwhelming and it's going to be unnecessary in many cases. So like I think I truly believe that they should set those initiatives or these more specific goals rather than those high level ones.
As devil's advocate, I am compelled to say that, well, wouldn't it be a job of a team leader in that sense to extract all, well, first of all, to come up with a few alternatives. You want more daily active users, we can do number 1, number 2, number 3, and then extract as much information from the CEO and executive group, and then try to make sense of that, present it, try to get the buy-in.
That could work for a lot of leaders, but it's not. All I'm trying to say, I don't think this should be the expectation. What we should expect from all the team leads or product managers to do all the time, because it can be like a true time sink also for them to try to think of all the different solutions to help us achieve that specific goal. Of like, if you have your goal as like a very high level goal, like for example, increase retention. What does that mean? Like how, like there are a million ways to increase the retention. You can't give that to your product manager and tell him or her, please increase the retention. You should tell them that, okay, we have these 3 different ideas for how we can increase the retention. Could you please take that to your team and try to explore those different ideas? And if you have something like other ideas that we did not mention, please bring them up to us. But these are the suggested ideas that we think that are going to help us a lot in improving retention.
Well, it's a job of a director or VP or chief product officer to help either to identify those initiatives himself with the team, with product managers, with execs, or help those PMs actually figure out a way to do it. But what you're saying is sometimes it's being offloaded to PMs.
Exactly.
Go figure it out.
Yeah, and I worked with teams where PMs were asked to do these kind of things. Like, we have a problem with bounce. Like people keep bouncing off from on this landing page, or not like this landing page. Like we don't have like a lot of retention. Please fix that for us.
Right.
Okay, sure. I will fix it.
And usually it's always like, well, can you do it yesterday? Like, please.
Yeah.
We really need it.
Exactly.
That highlights a lot of the challenges that companies have, meaning, and not only like, for example, on the marketing side, content side, having an unrealistic goal, unrealistic expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes the plans that teams present are just not executable because they just have too many things. Like it sounds great in theory, it's fantastic, but there's no resources to do it, there's no timeline to do it, and there's no budget. So what are we trying to do? Like I think there needs to be a team or somebody who's a skilled negotiator to do a massive reality realignment with the executive team. Yes.
Right. There's actually something also related to this that I just remembered, which is something I learned from the CEO of College Vine, a startup I worked at. It's Zach from that startup. Mm-hmm. He opened my eyes to this, of thinking of giving people more concrete goals than giving them like super high level goals. And like something related to that he shared that resonates a lot with me is that in some teams there are those people what he calls visionaries, and those visionaries in the team are the ones who usually come up with those creative solutions or those ideas that would help move the needle or help the company achieve its goals. So you should not expect that there are a ton of those visionaries on your team. Usually there are one or two visionaries in each team. And if you can identify those people, you should try to work with them on leading the team into where they should focus, what kind of solutions they should consider and whatnot.
That is a fantastic statement. That is totally. And you know what it highlights, I think, to me, is a lot of people are doing the wrong job. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who are trying to come up with that vision are awful. They're just completely terrible and unqualified. And it's a job of either the management or more directly the CEO to say, listen, this person, there's no way they can set any clear vision. It's a mess.
Right.
We need to get rid of this guy, or more realistically, reassign him because he's probably good at something else. Mm-hmm. But like you said, there are very few guys who can set a vision that makes sense, that is useful.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Well, this was awesome, Maggie. Thank you. Thank you for these insights. This was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much.
This is it. Thank you, guys, for listening. Another episode of Product Innovation Show. You can find all the links, everything we mentioned in the show notes. You can follow Mahdi on LinkedIn. And Mahdi, anywhere else people should click on to find you?
Yeah, they can check out my website, mahdif.com, and they can follow me on Twitter, mahdif.
Well, there you go. We'll include those links in the show notes. Thank you guys for listening. We're out.